Alright, let's do a video on networking. Why? Well, because networking is super important for elevating your earnings potential. It's super important for you to be able to live a richer and more fulfilling life. I was inspired to do this video by a comment from Yannis, so thank you for that. In this video, it will consist of 3 parts. Part number 1, I will share a cold DM that I sent to a director at Google. Part number 2, we will discuss the impacts of networking in terms of earnings potential and living a richer and more fulfilling life. I have some good stories to share in this part, so stay tuned for that. And then part number 3, I will share a vision that I have for this community and ask for some feedback in the comments around that. Alright. Let's get straight into part number 1. And I'm doing this because I want to inspire you and help you in how you send your cold DMs, how to think around it, and how to structure your DMs. First of all, for context, it's not a bad thing to send a cold DM. The person receiving the cold DM will be very happy in most cases because it means that they're doing something correct and other people are trying to do the same thing that they are doing. So do not worry about it. It's very flattering to receive a cold DM when you think about it like that. And to be fair, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing is that you don't get a response. Who cares, right? You have to try. You have to shoot your shots. Alright, more context. Be clear in your DM. Have a purpose. Don't just write, hey, what's up? Wanna chat? That's weird. That's not what you want to do. Let me share an example of what you do want to do, word for word. I'll cover up the personal details, of course, and then I will tell you a little bit around how I thought around sending this DM. Alright, so what I wrote was, hey X, I think it's inspiring to see that you have managed to land a role in country X coming from country Z. I am interested in doing something similar with my own career. Do you have any tips to share on how to navigate in the career to achieve such an outcome? All the best, Andreas. And before I read the response, let me just share how I thought when I wrote this DM. I thought that this person has done a very inspiring career move by moving from one country to another, not only elevating their career, but also getting to work in a new country where they can explore it for a longer period of time and really get to know that country, that culture, and I think that's a very rich and fulfilling way to do life. So that genuinely impressed me. That's why I wrote it like that. I was impressed with what the person had done and I asked, how did you do this? Just that. Nothing complex there. And the answer that I got from this director at Google was, thanks, Andreas. It may sound simplistic, but I'd say build your network. Find ways for people to get to know you and your work. Always happy to help. Alright, so there you have it. Straight from the director at Google. Build your network. Very important. And let's reflect on the impact that networking has had. I will share some stories, this is part 2 of the video, on how it has helped me elevate my earnings potential. And this is something that you can try to emulate if you want to, and I'm sure you have a ton of stories on your own, so feel free to share those in the comments as well. But in terms of networking, this helped me land my first job in a big city. I lived in a small town with my parents, and when I was 18 and it was time to move out, study in a big city, then my neighbor, who was a investment advisor, recommended me for a sales role at his wealth management company. So that's how I got my first sales job in wealth management. It was super interesting. I got to talk to celebrities, politicians, rich business people and listen in on how they did their investments and try to set an appointment with them. hugely beneficial. But continuing on the networking part, when I was studying in university, I would also get recommended for consulting projects because of languages that I knew, and in one case even because of Excel skills. I know, right? And anyways, even the current role that I have now with Google was because of a recommendation from a friend that I studied with. So big impact in terms of landing attractive roles. I think that you're doing yourself a disfavor if you're not trying to network and utilizing this hugely beneficial and powerful tool when you're trying to elevate your own earnings potential. We're a lot into earnings now. I'll talk more about rich and fulfilling life a little bit later on, so stay patient. Let's talk about referrals. Referrals is a great way to get past the first step of the interviewing process, the screening of all the resumes, and get directly to an interview with HR or the hiring manager. And your friend who's referring you will get a nice cash bonus from if you land the role. And in general, it's a very good fit when a person is hired from a recommendation. So the companies benefit a ton as well. Why is this? Well, when I do get referrals, I tend to first ask about a specific role that I see that I'm interested in from a person that works at the company that's putting out the role. So that way I will get a vague fit if I would be a good fit for this role or not, even before applying. And then of course, after talking to my friend, either over phone or a text, I will ask for a referral so that it's mutually beneficial, so that they also get something if I actually land the role. So that way, we're not wasting anybody's times. It's much easier for HR and recruitment. It's easier for you. It's easier all around. Everybody wins from this. This comes from networking. So big impact there once again. Let's talk about living a richer and more fulfilling life. I think a good way to do that is to learn more things about the world, about business, about culture in general. I find that the pursuit of academic interest and knowledge has brought me a ton of happiness. One example of how networking helped utilize this was when I was younger. I would interview successful people about their careers, businesses, and life. And this was something that helped me elevate my knowledge a ton, and thus helped also elevate earnings potential, I guess, indirectly. But it was hugely interesting and something that I quite enjoyed. Also, when I worked at Dell, I was part of this international culture exchange program. It was nothing super fancy. It was just two sellers that got paired up. We would set up Zoom calls once a month. In my case, I was paired up with an Italian seller, and I got to know a lot about Italian culture, the school system, the way business was made, and hobbies that people would have in Italy, as well as, climate and things to do when visiting the country. And in return, I would talk about Sweden, since that's where I grew up. So hugely beneficial there as well for a more fulfilling and rich life. And now we're getting to the final part of the video. I know, no more stories to share. I think that's enough. I think that drives home the point. But part 3 is around the community on this YouTube channel. I know that the people who watch have a genuine interest in finance, stocks, business, personal finance, and I think it's very hard to find a community like that. If you walk down the street, how many people have this type of interest? I don't think that's a lot of people. So I would very much like to try to cultivate a community around this. I'm not sure what would be the best way yet, if it's a Reddit page or a Discord server. I haven't really put a lot of thought into it, but please let me know your ideas in the comments below on what would be a good way to do this, because I see a ton of benefit from it long term. Not only on sharing ideas around stocks, investment, funding, risky venture capital. There's so many possible areas in terms of money making where it could be beneficial. For example, as I mentioned, the referral part. If you're meeting somebody on a forum, you enjoy having a conversation, you get to know the person, you help each other out a bit on projects. Eventually you could also do referrals. If somebody wants to move to a new country, that could help facilitate that process, and it really helps to know more people all around with this business interest, with different skills that can help out each other, and just coming together around this interest in making money and stocks. So that's a long-term vision for sure. It's something I will look more into later down the line. As of 2024, I'm working on a huge personal project that's taking up all of my time. I'm prioritizing it heavily outside of work, using a lot of hours on it, and it's something that will help me level up my money-making potential. I will definitely do a video on it when I can talk more about it, but as for now, I have to just leave it as a cliffhanger like that. That's been it for this video, talking about networking, and as always, hope you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now. Bye bye.